Hello everyone, I'm Cool Guy, welcome back. Today let's talk about the exotic reveal trailer, and I took a day to sit on it. I talked about it with the Firing Range podcast that we recorded last night, and that's Drewski, Cammy Cakes, Fallout, and I. There's a lot to be excited about. There could be some real meta contenders coming up with Beyond Light, and today I want to talk about where some of these can fit. We still haven't seen a glimpse of Hawkmoon yet. They said that they're still working on it, and maybe they still are, maybe they're waiting to reveal at a later date. But this is going to be a first impression, and technically it's not really fair to get down on something or really hype something that we don't have in our hands, but that doesn't mean that we can't have a first impression. There are some exotics that I'm down on. I'm going to tell you why, what I see with them, and hopefully I am proven wrong when we get them in our hands. Also, I want to talk about the current sandbox and how these can fit in. There's also the addition of Stasis coming with Beyond Light. I'm sure there's going to be combinations with these exotics and Stasis perks and mods. Starts off with no time to explain, and it also explains what the catalyst does. With the trailer speeding up and slowing down, it's hard to see the RPM of it, but I'm pretty sure it's a 450 RPM. I did side-by-sides with a 390, with a 540, all the pulse rifles, and nothing is close to lining up. The only thing that matches closely is a 450. Now, if it is, that would make the third exotic 450 RPM pulse rifle, Outbreak Bad Juju, and now no time to explain. Now, the exotic perk states precision hits and hits against enemies affected by stasis will return the magazine. So you stack this effect to summon a portal which will fire bullets from an alternate timeline of the weapon. Grants that personal protection portal. Now, the catalyst states that the portal is going to fire faster. So the key words are against enemies affected by stasis. That would assume you have to be running a stasis subclass, at least it sounds like it. I wouldn't be surprised if this is similar to an Arc Buddy, maybe even coded the same way. We don't know if 450 RPM pulses are going to be getting a buff, and if they do, that's going to make me a little bit more excited about this weapon, but with that portal, it should be enough to sway a TTK. Just like the Arc Buddy, anything that gives you an overshield is going to be top tier to run with this. And the big one, of course, is going to be pairing Getaway Artist. It's a possibility of having two little turrets just following you around. PvE wise, anything used in numbers tends to be really good. We see that with Outbreak, but with this one, say everyone's using Stasis, everyone's using No Time to Explain. I imagine it's going to do decently, but with primaries, it's kind of tough. Outbreak has some worth, like we talked about. Huckleberry is good for solo play, but a primary exotic takes away heavy exotics and other useful tools. Time's gonna tell. Next we have Cloud Strike. We don't know the RPM, but the perk states precision final blows will generate lightning bolts at the target location. Rapid precision shots or hits will summon an entire storm at the point of impact. It does appear to have quick draw or snapshot on it. That's very important. Again, the gameplay is sped up and slowed down, but this one seems fairly seamless in the gameplay as far as aim down sight, so I think it does. Depending on the damage the strike can do in PvE, it could be very useful. I'm already kind of looking at this as the sniper version of Thunderlord or Trinity Ghoul. And maybe when you get that sniper headshot, it's almost like a Thunderlord strike coming down, and when you do the rapid precision hits, the storm could be almost like a storm grenade falling on the area. So you just nail majors or bosses in the crit spot, get those precision hits, cause a storm, and do the damage to the surrounding area. In PvP, I'm actually very optimistic about this because if the base stats are sound, if they're good, if they're above average, and it does indeed have snapshot or quick draw, I'm the type of player that at that point is just going to ask, what more could you really want from a sniper rifle? It's snappy, has good base stats, it has the possibility to collat and take out enemies that are close to each other with a precision hit. It's a dream, and it's an exotic. Key thing to understand, since it's an exotic, it's always going to be useful going forward into all versions of Destiny. As a PvP player, you're always gonna have it. It could possibly turn into like an old reliable. You can pair it with your new favorite pulse or the new flavor of hand cannon. You're always gonna have the sniper rifle. And maybe you get that Zen Meteor type of clip. Take out two on that third or maybe the fourth, you have that massive storm. I'm actually really high on this because again, if it has the right stats and it has snap or quick, it should solidify itself quickly and long term. PvE wise, imagine 6 of you are running this in an encounter, and there's a damage phase and you're all landing precision hits, creating the storms on a boss. If it does good damage, it could have a place, so there's a lot to be excited about. Next we have the LAMENT, the exotic sword. Block with it to rev the blade, then shed through enemy shields. At its peak, damaging an enemy will heal the wielder. Immediately you think of the Stronghold Titan, and you also think that it can make one of the best high-end PvE subclasses, Night Stalker, even better. Imagine Grandmaster or high-level difficulty. You go invisible, get close with the sword, take out the shield, you time it right, and you dodge right back invisible. Now in the trailer it looks to pierce through the shield into health. It looks highly effective versus barriers, but the perk states also just versus shields. So your Minotaurs, whatever it is, we're just gonna have to see. Now I'm a big fan of tools in Destiny. This is a tool, it has a job. It's always risky getting close to powerful enemies, but if this sword does what it looks like it does, I'm looking forward to it. Especially early game raid and early game grandmaster. When we're low level, the activity's hard, something like this could come up really big when you need to delete a barrier champion before their shield comes up, because a lot of times, especially in early game, you can't kill them before that shield comes up. This could become really useful, we're gonna have to wait and see. Next we have Icefall Mantle, reinforced armor that replaces the Titan Barricade with Overshield, absorbing damage from incoming fire. Like, wow. At first glance, it appears to be PvP focused. We're gonna have to see what kind of shield it grants for PvE. But in PvE, that's gonna take away the crest, it's gonna take away Saint 14, other good exotics, so it's gonna have to be really good. It's gonna have to be a beefy overshield. And we also don't know how it's gonna pair with the new stasis tree. Again, that goes for any exotic talked about today, that's a wild card. But PvP wise, really think about it. Again, it depends on how much it's gonna give you, but an overshield should be enough to have a TTK shift versus weapons. Think One-Eyed Mask, very tough to take down in a 1v1 mid-range. That overshield can make them have to take 1 or 2 extra shots at you, and that's enough. It's gonna make players really think about higher resilience. For class ability, for the Barricade, Tier 7 is a 25-second cooldown, Tier 8 is 21, Tier 9 is 17, and Tier 10 is 14 seconds. To be able to get an overshield 4 times in a minute is pretty powerful. And not to mention, say you pair it with Traveler's Chosen, you get a kill, you consume a stack. You're gonna get it like in 4 or 5 seconds. There does appear to be an animation for it, not instant, it's kind of like popping a well or popping a barricade. You need to be somewhat safe to pop it. So you can do it before a fight, or you can drop out mid-fight, go behind cover and pop it. It looks strong. You can pair it with a number of skill trees, so just start being on the lookout for it. The stand-asides give roughly 30 extra shield when you're using them. If this exotic matches or surpasses that, it's gonna be warranted for usage. Next, we have Mask of BAKRIS, and I know what you're thinking, and you're right. This thing looks strong. It looks like something that could just skyrocket to the top, and I have no problem saying that. It's a neutral exotic. The dodge cooldown by itself is insane. You're gonna get it a lot. So you don the mask to replace the Hunter's dodge ability with a longer ranged shift ability that also temporarily cloaks the wearer during use. So the possibilities here are insane. It says it replaces dodge. There's a chance that it only works with stasis, but I think it's an actual true neutral game exotic, and if that's the case, this is trouble, especially if it's directional like a regular dodge. How will it work with gamblers and marksmen? I'm guessing you're gonna come out of phase, you're gonna be reloaded if you're next to an enemy, you're gonna get your melee back. First thing that comes to mind is Top Tree Arcstrider. That phase is an extended dodge, so after you phase, you're gonna get Deadly Reach, that gives you increased melee range. So one of the first things I'm gonna look at is the distance there. It could be like a 15-20 meter melee distance, because you're gonna phase teleport. After you do that, you're gonna get a longer melee range. If you get a melee kill, it's gonna reset the phase. You're gonna get combination blow going. You're gonna phase to your next enemy. Just keep an eye out for it. It looks really, really strong with Top Tree. There's also Mid-Tree Arcstrider with Tempest Strike. You can land the strike, come down, and just phase in a direction. Bottom Tree, you could disorient them with the melee. It's gonna stun their screen, they're just gonna phase and be lost. And not to mention, just imagine if you could phase while in the Arcstrider Super. The Night Stalker can phase and then just be invisible. I can see this becoming just a top choice in PvP, it's crazy. Like, imagine you're being chased by a roaming super. You could turn around, look at them, and just phase right by them to get behind them, then they have to turn around and start to acquire you and chase you again. It could be next level top tier stuff. Top tier movement, but I do still think that Wormhusk, Stompy, Dragon Shadow are still gonna have a place, but if this lives up to what we think it does, prepare yourselves, because 100 Nutra game just got a whole lot stronger than it already is. I'm probably gonna say this wrong, but we have Athris's Embrace, Superior Weighted Knife. The Hunter's Weighted Knife gains a second ricochet, rapid precision hits gain a damage bonus, and can temporarily stagger enemies. Now, I'm really about to slam this thing on a first impression. It looks like you're just gonna throw it on, try to have some fun with it type of deal. It has 2 parts. It has a second ricochet, and then more damage with rapid precision hits. I really don't know about this one. A second ricochet is just like, I don't know, it's kind of gimmicky. They already nerfed its hit detection, and now you're putting faith in a second bounce. And the second bounce, by the way, is just pure faith. Like, you send it out, yeet, and it's gone. It's just, you're either gonna get a kill or not, and then you don't have your weighted knife anymore. You should really be going for knife headshots, and that's good because the second part of the perk wants you to do that. But the second part is still kind of weird to me, and I even play Bottom Tree Gunslinger in PvE as well. The rapid precision hits gain a damage bonus and can temporarily stagger enemies. For those of you listening, maybe you can agree with me here with what I'm saying. If you've tried Bottom Tree Gunslinger in PvE, even right now, trying to land a critical on a Hobgoblin is like 50-50. You're aiming right on it, and it doesn't give you the crit. The issue with that, ever since they toned the aim assist down, which by the way I do agree with, it was out of hand, but It's now to a point, it's like a 50-50 feeling, like you're aiming right at the critical spot and it doesn't give it to you. That issue is that 50-50, because it wants you to chain precision kills. It says hits, but you only get the knife back with the precision final blow. If you do get the knife back, you gain the bonus damage. And you can stack it all the way up and then just stagger higher tier enemies. But if you get on a streak and the moment that knife one-shot bodies or hits a body, it's all over. That damage that you've acquired is gone. You have to wait for the cooldown again. There's just so many variables and it just doesn't really look too strong. It could be a fun thing. It looks memey, it looks gimmicky, and it really pains me to say that because I love the weighted knife. I love Bottom Tree Gunslinger. But as a first impression, I'm not really feeling it. But we're gonna see soon. The Dawn Blade gets Dawn Chorus, and at first I thought it would be a buff to the tree. But when I looked at it, it appears to be only while in Daybreak. The Warlock's Daybreak projectiles deal extra damage and cause enemies to burn on contact, gain melee energy each time a burn damages a target. So again, I'm gonna kind of slam this one in a different way. With the clip, the description, it looks like there's an area of effect explosion when you get a kill, kind of like combustion from a golden gun, which is nice. I was excited, and still might be, if burns from a subclass do indeed do more burn damage, not just while in Daybreak. I made a video about a month or so ago talking about Bottom Tree Dawnblade shortcomings, and if this helmet does give you burn from abilities, then that subclass could be really good because Bottom Tree does have the best Daybreak super, it does have Igniting Touch melee, it could really start to be decent for PvE and the Crucible, but I'm gonna be real with you. Again, first impression, I don't like this trend of the new Warlock exotics all having to do with two things. It's either the super or the melee. If the helmet is just for the Dawnblade super, I fear it's gonna have the same fate as the last two. This is the third straight expansion for Warlocks getting exotic for the super. Who out there uses Storm Dancer's Brace, the Promethean Spur? Do you remember those? Because when push comes to shove, a lot of players go well. And in PvP, most of the time you're going for a neutral exotic. That's why it's so important that this thing gives more burn damage to the Dawnblade subclass. And that Bottom Tree Daybreak is the best Daybreak. It's got the tracking, you get more super energy after you get some kills. It has good destruction with its ad clear. And then the Dawnblade from the helmet does more damage. It could find use, we're gonna have to wait and see. And again, if it does give extra burn for a neutral game, my mind's gonna be shifted immediately. At that point, it could be deadly. Next, the Warlock's Necrotic Grip, and I'm really excited about this, but again, I'm gonna point out this is the other part. It's a melee exotic for the Warlock, but melee attacks corrupt enemies with increasing damage over time, so poison. Defeating a corrupted combatant spreads the corruption to nearby enemies and restores melee energy. This does look like a contender in PvE and PvP. It just says melee attacks, and one would think that you don't need a charged melee to do so to get this effect. Kind of like Dune Marchers, though we don't know if it's gonna go through walls, but really think about it. There are a number of melees. The new Stasis Ice Staff melee, the Celestial Fire, the Thunder melee. Hit them with the melee, they're gonna get poisons, and when you kill them, that poison can spread again to another enemy. So even if you go down, it sounds like there's a chance that you could poison an enemy, die, a friendly can down them, then that poison just keeps getting spread from enemy to enemy. I do have high hopes for this one, and that's PvE as well. If the poison does good damage, you kind of think of it as free damage, DPS, to whatever you're using. Maybe you stack it with Thorn. Maybe a burn effect like Bottom Tree's Igniting Touch, so you have a burn and a poison. And that combo on Bottom Tree Dawn might be close to a one-shot melee. There are a lot of possibilities. We just need to see how it all interacts. It's a sleeper. Next, we have Precious Scars. I can see this in Trials, and I can see it in harder endgame PvE activities because upon revives, the Titan gains an overshield aura that protects the wearer and nearby allies. You can keep the squad alive in harder PvE encounters, and in PvP, imagine this. You're in a 3v3, a teammate goes down, you're the Titan, you go for the revive, your teammate throws up a stasis wall, so that's gonna clear the area for a revive. You both get down there, you get the revive, you're all gonna come up with this overshield aura. There's going to be tests that need to be done as far as the health that you get from the overshield, but I would imagine it's going to be beefy. It should be one of the more healthy overshields, more health than the Stand-Asides, a Warlock Healing Grenade, One-Eyed Mask, or the other new exotic, the Icefall Mantle. I look at this one again as a tool. You can pair it with a Barricade for that extra line of defense. It could prove very useful. And lastly, we have Salvation's Grip, a grenade launcher. Each fire projectile will create stasis crystals that will freeze nearby targets. Charge to increase the amount of crystals created and the freeze radius. It's a little tough to decipher what's going on here. So you're gonna shoot a grenade, it's gonna make a crystal, it's gonna freeze nearby enemies. You charge it to increase the amount of crystals created in that freeze radius. Now when it says the number of crystals and radius, it makes me think of Anarchy. For PvE, it could be top tier. Even chaining and pairing with teammates. Imagine you do this to an area, you freeze the area, and then a teammate shoots like a Deathbringer over that area. Crucible wise, I'm under the impression that anytime you freeze an enemy, it's gonna be top tier. On that fact alone, if the one-shot freeze radius is good, I can see it used 100%, for sure. And also, I don't want it to get lost how amazing these look and appear to perform. We do have some meta challengers here on paper. And we haven't seen something like this since Forsaken as far as exotics. New ways to play, cool concepts, and this looks like it's gonna feel like Destiny should. Lots of space magic. If you're new here, remember to hit the subscribe button. I do have channel memberships live, so if you'd like to support me and the channel, next to the sub button, there's a button that says join. If you're looking for a new controller, I am partnered with Scuff Gaming, so you can go to the link below, use my code COOL at checkout for a discount. I have a couple questions for you. You can answer one or all, or none if you don't want to answer any of them. But the first question is, what are you the most excited about on this list? Number 2, what are you fearing the most? What looks to be a little too strong? And 3 is, what do you dislike about any of these new exotics that we talked about, if anything? Let's talk about it down below. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I am Cool Guy.